Okay, good day. Good morning for those that are on our side, and good afternoon for everyone that's kind of joining us from outside of the country. We are having our third Sign Up for Portugal webinar series today. It's really great that you're able to join us. Today's webinar series is going to be focused on investment opportunities in Portugal, where to find them, who to get in touch with, kind of just get to know the ins and outs of the investment sector in Portugal. So today we're going to be joined with some amazing key speakers that are working within the investment sector. And the entire webinar is going to take about an hour. The webinar is targeting international entrepreneurs who are looking to either start a business in Portugal or relocate their company into Portugal, and to understand where the money is at and how they can kind of access those funds as necessary funds that they need to get their business off the ground. So over this next hour, our webinar is going to be hosted by an amazing colleague, Andre, and he's going to be introducing and kind of guiding you through this next hour. So Andre, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Thank you, Stephanie, and thank you everyone for joining us. It's a good day, so it's probably not a good day to be on Zoom, but anyway, we have a great topic here to go over, and I'm really glad that we are doing this. I would just like to say that we have actually two chat boxes, one for just chatting, obviously, and one for the Q&A. So please, if you have any questions regarding the presentations or the panel later on, please jump in the Q&A box, which will be easier for us. I would like to hand it over to Pedro Magalhães now from Banco Português do Fomento. Pedro, thank you for joining us. I think the stage is yours now, so you can take it from now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I think you can see my presentation now. I'm sharing my screen, and first of all, I want to thank to Startup Portugal for inviting us and to be able to present Banco Português de Fomento and talk a little bit about our financial instruments, in particular equity financial instruments. So BPF is the Portuguese promotional institution, like ICO in Spain, BPI France in France, or KfW in Germany. And like these entities, our main goal is to address market failures in access to finance by Portuguese companies, either through medium and long-term debt or equity instruments. Thus, our activity can be divided into three major areas through guarantee instruments or risk-sharing financial instruments, debt instruments or funding, and also equity instruments in particular. And I will talk today about these equity instruments, in particular those that are active and that can be used to invest in Portuguese companies. Thus, BPF acting on market failures, our mission is to support the economic and social development of Portugal through the creation and provision of innovative, competitive, and suitable solutions to the needs and challenges of the business ecosystem. In this sense, our activity is based on three main pillars. The first is growth, promoting entrepreneurship, innovation, and job creation. Then sustainability, being the Portuguese green bank, and stability, fostering economic recovery in times of crisis. Talking about the equity financial instruments, as you can see on this slide, we currently have a total of almost 1 billion euros available to invest in startups and growing companies. And in particular, we have almost 250 million available to invest in partnership with business angels and venture capital funds. Using European structural funds, we invested in more than 50 SPVs of business angels and 13 venture capital funds so that they can invest in creation of new companies and startups, and to provide SMEs with the means to develop their innovation, growth, and internationalization strategies. Of this amount, we have already committed a little more than 50%, but we still have enough money to invest in new projects. Assessing the IFD website, that was the previous entity that was managing these instruments, but soon also on the BPF website, you can find the list of all business angels and all venture capital funds that have partnered with us under these financial instruments. Then we also have 3 other financial instruments, 200M, the Social Innovation Fund, and some partnerships with EIF, and which I will talk about in the next slides. So starting with the 200M Matching Fund, this is a fund which invests directly in startups with co-investment and risk sharing with private investors. 200M can match up to 100% of the private money with tickets going from 500K to 5 million euros per company. So, and for example, foreign investors does not have to create a fund or a vehicle in Portugal to invest in a Portuguese company, so they can invest directly in the company in partnership with us using this 200M fund. We are a silent partner, and we grant a call option to the private co-investors, giving them the possibility to buy out 200M stake, paying a yield that can goes up to 6% per year. The fund has some preferential sectors, however, these are not exclusive. Then we have the Social Innovation Fund. That is another fund that we are managing, and that can also invest directly in Portuguese companies with co-investment and risk sharing with the private investors. The big difference between 200M and the Fundo para a Inovação Social or Social Innovation Fund is that FIS has the mission to create a positive and lasting social transformation. FIS co-investment can go up to 70% of the total investment amount, with tickets that can go from 5K to 2.5 million euros per company. Like the 200M fund, the Social Innovation Fund also grants a purchase option to the private co-investors, and the IRR can go up to 5%. In this slide, we have some companies that have been invested by 200M and the Social Innovation Fund. Some of them that are very well known in the Portuguese ecosystem. And on the right side of the slide, you have some information about the co-investors. And regarding these co-investors, in addition to many national partners with whom we have co-invested, I would like to highlight the high number of international investors, some of them that made their first investment in Portugal through these financial instruments. Then I would like also to talk a little bit about some partnerships that we have with the European Investment Fund. The European Investment Fund is the main venture capital investor in Europe. And for these partnerships, BPF is allocating a total of 125 million euros, which will at least be matched by EIF. Under these programs, we and the IF, we do not invest directly in companies, but we are investing in funds, ventures and growth funds, and in partnership with other private investors. We and the IF, we can make over up to 70% of the commitments of this in these funds, but the average is something like 50%. Some more specific and technical details about these financial instruments. Portugal Tech is a more venture partnership focusing on technology transfer projects with an allocation of 100 million euros. Then we have a second partnership that is Portugal Growth. As the name implies, is a focus on growth, expansion and buyout funds. And the allocation is also 100 million euros. And finally, we have Portugal Blue that aims to invest in blue economy projects in Portugal. At least twice the amount mobilized by BPF must be allocated to companies based in Portugal, 1.5 times for Portugal Blue, and funds may invest in SMEs and mid-caps, and the minimum ticket per fund that we are investing is 4 million, and the maximum amount is 25 million euros. Here you can find the name of the teams that have been selected and invested under these partnerships, and we have Indico, Armilar and Faber Ventures that have been invested under Portugal Tech partnership, so they are more venture capital funds. And then we have Vallis, Crest that are more growth or private equity funds. We expect under these three partnerships to invest in more 3 or 4 funds, some of them until the end of this year. To finalize my presentation, I want to share some success cases invested with support of BPF, some companies that you may know. 2 of them are 2 Portuguese unicorns, and that have been invested with the support of BPF in the past, and another one, Swartels, is making that pathway, and we expect that one day they can also be another Portuguese unicorn with support of BPF. So I hope this information was helpful, and I'm naturally available to schedule more individual meetings if you want to do that and to analyze a more specific situation. You have here my email, and feel free to get in touch if you need any help. And thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Pedro, for your presentation. I think it was really insightful. I would like to invite Adão to join us on stage. Adão from Portugal Ventures, obviously, is somebody that would be key to talk a little bit about what's going on in terms of investment in Portugal. So Adão, if you could turn on your camera and come on stage.
Yes, I think, yeah, I'm already here. Thanks, Andre, and thanks, Stephanie, and thanks, Startup Portugal, for having me, and Portugal Ventures here. I will just share my screen. Okay, it's up and running. I believe so. Yeah, okay. So I think some introductions are due about myself. So my name is Adão Oliveira. I'm an investment manager at Portugal Ventures, one of the top venture capitalists in Portugal. So prior to my return to Portugal Ventures last year, where I worked from 2012 until 2019, I worked at Conexo Ventures, a venture capital firm in Madrid that is part of the private equity group named Jet Capital. So overall, I have 10 years of experience in the venture capital world, mainly in seed, early stage, and growth. Yeah, so at the moment, I serve at the board of companies like Barkin and Codavel, and also by being an investment professional, I also make part of the European Innovation Council by the European Commission. So Portugal Ventures. So who we are. So as I said, we are a venture capital firm that invests in startups mainly, and in startups with global ambition. So in a nutshell, we look for value, ambition, credibility, and commitment. And this is important to emphasize, since ambition and credibility, usually they don't come together. So we have a lot of founders that have ambition and they lack the credibility. And also we have founders that have the credibility, but sometimes have a low ambition. So it's very important for us that we can have both when we are looking for investment opportunities. So regarding the history of Portugal Ventures, it's a long story already with more than 30 years of history, but the most recent part of that history started in 2012. So in 2012, Portugal Ventures was born, and as resulted from the merge of three venture capital firms that were Enough Capital, ICEP Capital, and Turismo Capital. And since 2012, we made a lot of things. And ultimately what happened in last year was that Portugal Ventures is now part of PPF that Pedro was talking about. So that's the most recent history. So what we do, so we are basically focusing 4 verticals. So that is digital, life science, engineering and manufacturing, and tourism. We invest in the stages of pre-seed, seed, and Series A, and we invest in companies that are located in Portugal and that have the headquarters in Portugal. So since 2012, we roughly invest 164 million in 147 startups distributed by these verticals. Over the years, we positioned Portugal Ventures as a benchmark venture capital partner in Portugal, and this was recognized by the press, mainly by CB Insights and also for Deal Room. And regarding the investment approach, so basically we invest from 50,000 euros up to 1.5 million. Of course, this depends on the sector and also on the stage that the company is in. We are in favor of co-investment, so with Portuguese and obviously also with international partners, and this is really obvious. It's basically a question of diluting the risk. Typically we make tranche investments according to the achievement of strategic milestones and deliverables. We hold a minority stake in the company's share capital. This is obvious because we are investing in the initial stages of investment, so pre-seed, seed, Series A, and it will not make any sense to take a majority of the company at this stage. And usually we also have a seat on the board of directors of the company. So this investment process might be useful for the audience to know. So basically, it all starts with the online application, although I must say that we take a position of being reactive, but also proactive. So we also look proactively for opportunities that are in the market, but most part of our deal flow actually it's through online application. So once this process started, and all these stages that are here are basically eliminatory, but the first stage, it's the pre-screening. So after online submission, we review the project, the proposal, and we have an initial chat with the founders team to know the company and some of the more important things that are needed to know in this assessment. After that, we proceed forward, or we decide to pass the opportunity. Then we set up a panel of experts. So basically we invite the founders to join us and to do a session with experts that have skills within the sector in which the company is working in. Afterwards, this is also eliminatory. Like I said, we move forward or not, and then if we move forward, we proceed to the pitch to the board of directors of Portugal Ventures. If things look good, the investment proposal is interesting, we present a term sheet to the founders team. Usually after that, there is a negotiation period. I never saw ourselves presenting a term sheet and having the founders saying immediately, we accept it. I never saw that. So usually there is a period of negotiation of the term sheet. And so if everyone agrees with the terms and conditions, we move forward for the investment agreement. So cash in the bank and put the engine start and running for achieving awesome results. So this is the investment process. Obviously, this investment process is supported by our partners. So Ignition Partner Network, that basically are the incubators, the accelerators, that are the universities that are in the field and that try to help us on the assessment, also on identifying interesting opportunities. Then we also have the Ignition Capital Partners, that basically it is a network of investors, and this network is national and international, and this is relevant for syndicating investment opportunities. And we also have the Corporate Partners Network, that basically are companies that are very mature in the market and that eventually could take benefit of working with the startups that we have invested. So our portfolio. So basically, at this moment, we have 43 companies in the digital, 47 engineering manufacturing, and 20 life science, and 26 in tourism. It's obvious to see digital and engineering and manufacturing are the divisions that have more companies. These are some co-investment examples that we have. Particularly me, I was involved in this one of Parkin that we invest last year. You should go check it out if you have dogs. And regarding our calls, so although we do this proactively and also reactively, so reviewing the investment proposals that we receive, sometimes we decided to open calls, thematic calls for submissions. The most recent was Call for Deep Tech. Actually, this closed on Sunday, but it is what it is. But you can keep submitting the investment proposals. We also have the Call Fit, and this one is oriented for the tourism sector and for companies that are in the pre-seed stage, and this is open until 8th of October. We also have the open day. Actually, the open day is not a call, it's more like an open day itself, where basically we sit with founders that want to know more about us. We also have the opportunities to know projects that probably we will not know if we don't have this kind of initiative. So next one is, actually it's Friday, but I think there are still seats available if you want to try it. Another calls that we have in the past and for which the applications are closed right now, it's called I Know ID and also Call Tourism. Okay. Of course, we have a 24/7 service at any time all year round, and this is the mail for which we should submit your proposal, investment proposal. So yeah, in a nutshell, that's it. You have my email. Please be totally comfortable for reaching out to me if you have any questions or like to know more about Portugal Ventures and potential investment from us. And yeah, that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Adão. I think that was really clear, but just a friendly reminder that if anyone has any questions regarding Adão's presentation and Pedro's presentation, please jump into the Q&A chat box, leave your questions. We'll be eager to answer them if we can, obviously. Now I would like to call on stage Daniela Monteiro from Porto Digital, Diogo Cruz from Invest Lisboa, and Pedro Silínio from YapMe. If you can open your cameras, your microphones, it would be great. Thank you for joining us. Let's see, we're still, good morning, Pedro. We're still missing Daniela. Let's see if Daniela can join us. So this debate panel is obviously about investment opportunities. Because I'm probably the worst person doing introductions that you will know, I would like to ask you to introduce yourselves. Maybe we'll go alphabetically, if that's okay. Daniela, I know that you're head of investment, head of entrepreneurship at Porto Digital, but maybe you can talk a little bit about your organization and what you guys are doing in Porto's ecosystem.
Good morning, Andre. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Startup Portugal, for having me here today. My name is Daniela. I've been working with in the startup ecosystem for some years now, and more specifically for the last years here in Porto, supporting the development of the startup ecosystem. I work at Porto Digital, which, amongst other things, is managing the implementation of the strategy for entrepreneurship here in the city of Porto, and the strategy from the municipality of Porto, which is called Scale Up Porto. At Scale Up Porto, we are aiming at developing the sustainability of the ecosystem by working with local, national, and international stakeholders, fostering the conditions for startups to grow from the city and to be able to reach the international ecosystem. Of course, before we have scale-ups and before startups become scale-ups, they have to start, and that's why the strategy is called Scale Up Porto, but it's also focused on the earliest stages and on the community itself that supports this long-term vision of sustainability.
Thank you, Daniela. Now, following the alphabetical rule, Diogo, you can go on and introduce yourself and talk a little bit about Invest Lisboa, if you please.
Okay, Andre, thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation and welcome everyone. My name is Diogo. I work at Invest Lisboa. Invest Lisboa is the investment promotional agency of the city of Lisbon. So we are responsible for the attraction of investors, of companies and startups, entrepreneurs into Lisbon. And we also responsible for providing services that help not only the decision-making of these investors and companies to see if Lisbon makes sense for them to set up their business, but also after they have decided for Lisbon, we will keep on working until the implementation and the development of the business. So we are a partnership between the municipality of Lisbon and the Chamber of Commerce and Industry of Portugal, based in Lisbon, and we are here to be a partner to help make the decisions by providing information, by organizing visits, local visits to Lisbon, by sharing our network of partners with companies or startups that want to set up in Lisbon, and also by explaining what are the services and advantages that Lisbon has to offer, basically trying to help make the best decision, the best informed decision about Lisbon.
Thank you, Diogo. Pedro, you have the stage now. We are partners with YapMe, so obviously I'll just say we're big fans, which is something that we should say, obviously.
Thank you.
But if you can talk a little bit about what YapMe does, it would be perfect.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so I'm Pedro Silínio. I'm head of investment for innovation and competitiveness in YapMe for about 15 years, so a very long time. I almost forget the early days. So YapMe is an agency from the Ministry of Economy. So we have many areas of activity. One of them is the investment promotion, where we work together with ICEP. ICEP has has a focus on large investments, so YAPME has a focus on small and medium-sized enterprises. And we manage mainly grant systems with the support of EU funds and other kinds of funds. For example, the Portugal 2020 programs, where we have several measures like for example, startup voucher or the incubation voucher, that were two measures of YAPME. And we have about investment portfolio of 7.1 billion euros of investment in about 9,000 operations. And we also manage in my team an instrument that is very interesting. It's not a grant system, but it's a tech visa. It's a certification program to allow for companies that incorporate in Portugal to recruit qualified workers outside EU, streamlining the visas and the residence permit processes.
Thank you, Pedro.
Thank you.
I know over the last webinars we've been focusing a little bit on Lisbon's ecosystem, but since this is Startup Portugal this time around, I would like to start with Porto and have a little bit of a feel of what's going on in Porto's ecosystem. So Daniela, I will start with you if that's okay. I know that Porto, obviously I'm based in Porto, so I'm a big fan. So I know that Porto is pretty singular and a standout in terms of development in the Portuguese ecosystem. But just out of curiosity, what have been the most standout verticals or areas in Porto based on your experience working with Porto Digital?
The ecosystem in Porto is pretty much connected to knowledge that's been developed by academia, specifically the University of Porto, but also the R&D centers, and also has a deep connection to the industry around in the region. But that said, most of our startups, more than 80% of our startups, work on B2B business models. So this is our strength for sure. And then we can tell that a lot of them are also developing software as a service products. So these are the big numbers. Then many of the startups work. We have some verticals that are stronger, even though there's a lot of diversity in the ecosystem, but the vectors that have been growing are on health, also a lot of marketing, and some services for industry.
Thank you, Daniela. And what about the VC scenario in Porto? I know there are some business angels based in Porto, some VC funds as well. Do you think they are aligned with Porto trends at the moment? Are they investing in Porto? What's the scenario like?
Even though we are speaking about Porto, we cannot close Porto as an ecosystem itself. So Portugal is so small that we cannot look at Porto and at the VCs operating here and the ecosystem as an isolated factor. So the investors that operate in Porto are not only the ones that are based in Porto, and we have a lot of course, Portugal Ventures is based here and it invests a lot in the ecosystem, but there are national investors investing here in the ecosystem, and also in the international ones, and that's what we have been working on. It's on not only making our ecosystem visible to the national investors, but also to the international ones, and we have been working with national and international investors on that. About the trends, we can tell that the earlier stages have been a bit more stagnated for the past months, and the investments are happening in more mature stages, if I can say. So in that sense, I don't know if it's aligned with the rest of the country, with the numbers of in the rest of the country, but if I may take any conclusions or share any insights, I would say this is one of them.
Thank you, Danielle. Actually, you just touched the point that I would like to address a little bit later on about the size of Portugal and how it might not make so much sense to think about local investment, you know. But I think I would like to address that question to everyone else, so we can wait a little bit. I would like to move on to Diogo. I think this question is actually interesting for Danielle as well, but I would like to have your opinion on this. So, Diogo, given your experience now, how do you feel that COVID impacted the investment scene, the investment sector in Lisbon or in the country? If you have any insights on that, that would be really interesting to share.
Okay, actually, I was talking with Daniela before we start about it. Here in Lisbon, and to my knowledge and to the projects that I'm more involved with, which are many tech-based companies and tech-based projects, the investment during the COVID, and that is the perception that we have here at Invest Lisboa, maybe YAPME that has a larger broad could confirm or not. I would say that in the digital ecosystem, the investment kept on growing. The companies that are located here actually had some of them have a good impact because of the trend for digitalization, the trend for the tech companies that are providing other services that actually had some boost over this. And in general, the investment, I would say that in the first wave, there was a wait and see movement. So we had some projects in pipeline that were not cancelled, but they were postponed to see how it goes. And now in the last few days, and of course there was some impact because 2019 was really strong, but in the last second half of the 2020 and even during this year, we are seeing that the investment is again having come back. Especially when compared to other countries where the investment was really affected. The EY launched a study that's saying that Portugal was on the top of the FDI attraction in 2020, one of the top countries. That was more than 100 projects that came to Portugal. So I would say that investment and the interest of Portugal is very strong. Of course, everything created some wait and see perspective, but now people are returning to normal. There's a new hope about things getting back to normal, and we hope this trend continues. And I would say that this time next year, I'm hopeful that things are normal and people are really eager to return to normal activities. Invest Lisboa deals with many sectors, not only tech sectors, but it's agnostic in terms of sectors. And the same thing is happening in other kinds of investments which is they are very interested in returning to the investments. The studies show that Lisbon and Portugal are on the top of the most interesting countries to keep on investing. And so we are very optimistic about the future in terms of investment, not in every sector, in financial investment, in real estate, and in also continue to work in the startup investment attraction.
Thank you, Diogo. Pedro, now moving on to Yapme and what Yapme has been doing over the last years. Some of your programs have been key to the development of the startup ecosystem, but as somebody in charge of investment, have you been noticing any trends in Portugal? I'm asking this as a little bit as a follow-up of what Diogo just shared with us, because given our experience at Startup Portugal, I noticed that startups obviously have higher digitalization skills or are more digitalized businesses and have excelled during COVID times, which which is not surprising, but it's great news, and it means that they are doing something right. Is this something that you can confirm? Do you agree? What's your take on this?
Yes, so of course, startups have one thing that established companies normally don't have, is this higher capacity of adaptation to uncertainty. So of course, this was something that gave that was used for many startups to use the opportunities that also came with COVID. So, of course, many things have changed because of that. Before COVID, for example, of course, that most of startups were technologically based and had lots of value chains and activities in terms of activity. But of course, some sectors were beneficiated with this state, and others are still struggling very hard with it. For example, everyone that was related to health, of course, had a huge boost and opportunities during these times. Everyone related to tourism probably had some problems. Of course, we always have niches, like some kind of services that made the connection for companies to be able to supply goods and services supported with digital platforms. But these are the tech companies also had huge opportunities. And of course, this means that we are still in a very in uncertainty environment. So things can change from one day to another. We have this, for example, the example of tourism. About 3-4 weeks, everyone was happy because we were one of the destination elected places for UK, and then some days after, things turned around completely. And of course, this is something that companies are dealing with, and we are still in an area where Yapme and is focusing on keeping most of companies alive for what Diogo mentioned, for this new hope that we expect that will come in the next month. So I enjoyed The New Hope because it's the title of the first Star Wars movie. So I think it's a good omen for this.
Thank you, Pedro. Now I would like to open the discussion for everyone, and I would like to start with the question raised by Daniela, actually, about does it make much sense to think about a regional VC kind of thing when we're talking about investment? And actually, and despite we at Portugal having amazing funds such as Armilar, Faber, Indico, and obviously Portugal Ventures, we at Startup Portugal are advocating for a more continental kind of approach. And I think that our startups have been showcasing exactly that. When we think about startups such as Barkin, such as Sordelf, we're talking about the startups that are based in Portugal that have been able to access money coming from other funds from abroad. What's your take on this? Do you feel that obviously the availability of money in Portugal, is it in a good state? Does it make sense to focus our ecosystem growth only on the available funds in Portugal? Should startups think global from not only in the when they're building their business, but also when they're raising money? Maybe Danielle, do you want to start?
Well, I will take the guess that we will be all on the same page on this one. We all know that startups look for money, but also look for expertise and for network and for potential customers, and investors can help them bring it all. So if they usually start international, it makes sense for them to look for investors that also have this way of working, this mindset. So this regional approach, of course, it's easier for an investor to invest if the investor is close to the investee. It's easier to follow up and to work with them, but we can for first rounds mainly, but then follow-ups and bigger rounds, it makes sense to go for a more international point of view and for a bigger ambition. This view of having a bigger ecosystem, or even an European ecosystem, has been part of our work. And I know that Lisbon also has been doing this. We are both part of the Scaled Cities Network. We just had a meeting before this webinar. We have been working in an international network to bring these networks together and to expand these opportunities, to expose our ecosystems, and to create a bigger European ecosystem, so chances and opportunities are higher than these local ecosystems that are closed in themselves. So I'm totally in favor of having this international approach, and also for investors to have this approach. And I know that many of them already do.
Thank you, Daniela. Pedro, do you want to share your opinion with us, maybe?
Yeah. Yes. Many of these new startups are born global, so the market has no barriers. So whether you start in a high density area like Lisbon or Porto or other area, it's with digital technologies and all we have now, it's much easier for startups to reach global markets. And I think that this should be the aim for most startups. So I don't say that local entrepreneurship is not important for keeping local jobs, etc. But I'm more a fan of local startups that work globally and that work in international markets. And I think that this should be the focus of startups, of most of startups now, not just thinking the local market, but starting looking at the market globally.
Thank you. Diogo, do you have anything to share with us?
Yes, I agree with both Daniela and Pedro. I think in most companies, most startups in Lisbon, and I'm sure that in Porto also, as Pedro mentioned, they start having a global market as their base market, at least European market, which I think is something that differentiates the companies, the startups in Portugal than startups, for example, in the US, that they start looking at the US market, which is enormous, of course. But I think that's a good thing, and I think that's something we should all incentivize, is this global market view when even in the first day of starting up. In terms of investment, of course, I think the investors should look where they have the best advantage. I understand that being near to the project is good, because especially as Daniela mentioned, especially at the pre-seed, seed, because it's easier to follow up and have advice and support and help the companies when they are nearby, although nowadays it's possible very easily to work at distance. So for companies, for startups, and for investors, and even for us, the investment promotion entities, given that Portugal is so small, I think it makes much more sense to collaborate than to compete, and then to compete with each other. Given that, I also understand that the city perspective makes sense to develop their ecosystems and try to create the conditions to attract companies and startups to the city and to provide the resources they need to develop. So I think basically that Portugal should not compete within each other, should collaborate, of course, but regions should also, it's a little paradoxical, but regions and cities should try to create the best conditions, and that would be best for the whole country as a whole, the best conditions to attract and to develop their ecosystems here, not by undermining other regions, but by collaborating, but creating all the resources and the conditions that companies need to grow. The company's job and the startup jobs and the investor jobs is to try to find the best locations to grow and to set up their conditions. Our job is to create these conditions to attract companies. So I think it's basically that.
And that's the beauty of being in Portugal, right? As Daniela stated, and I completely agree, Portugal is a small country, a small market. Usually that means that startups that are born here are already thinking global, as Pedro said as well. It also means that it's easier for us to just be connected with each other and make sure that startups are not thinking just local, but thinking globally and globally inside the country. I think that's really key here.
And my experience is that investors, they don't invest in just one location. They might start with one location, but very, very soon they are looking at other cities within the country, looking for the best opportunities. And I think if we collaborate with the investors and with the company agencies, I think it's better for everybody, because at the moment we are not at a capital scarcity problem. That's not a problem. There's lots of capital around, and so I think we should collaborate to grow as a country together, because the best opportunities are the ones that attract capital, and capital is available, and investment is available.
And that takes me actually to a question that I'm curious about. I know that last year during a pandemic, Portuguese startups based in Portugal raised over 430 million euros at least, which is quite amazing given the scenario that we were living and the uncertainty of times. Working with investors, do you feel like the .pt brand is already acknowledged outside our borders? Are investors more keen to bet on Portuguese-based startups? Maybe Pedro, do you want to start this time?
Yes, I think yes, that Portugal has changed its image a lot during the later years, and that hasn't changed during the COVID time. What we see, and of course we have also lots of meetings with foreign investors that want to set up their businesses in Portugal, is that they look at Portugal as with lots of curiosity and see Portugal as a big opportunity as a good way to enter, for example, other markets like Europe or like Africa. So I think that the image that people many years ago had about Portugal has changed dramatically, and that is something that has a lot to do also with what startups and entrepreneurship made in the last years, because that also changed the image of Portugal for the best. So we have like a retrofitting thing where with startups and entrepreneurship, we help changing dramatically the image of the country. And of course, this is attracting new opportunities and other investors.
Thank you, Pedro. Now, Daniela, I would like to hear your take. I mean, it's almost like I know your answer, because given the bank that Porto-based startups, I'm thinking about TonyCap, Sword Health, Barkin have been doing outside of Portugal. I think it's pretty self-explanatory, but I would like to hear your opinion on this. Do you feel like the .pt brand is making a boom outside of the country?
We investors will follow good investment opportunities, and I believe that the Portuguese brand is not a setback for them to look for good investment opportunities. But we have all been working as a country to position us and to create this reputation where Portugal is not a strange factor when they see where is this technology coming from. So we have been trying to work on this reputation, so when they see Portugal, they recognize quality and potential. So I see that has been happening. But that said, I also had an interesting conversation with an investor from the UK a few years ago, where he said that they wouldn't spend so much time in Portugal because the amount of deal flow wouldn't be so big as if they went to Scandinavia and they would meet, I don't know, 30 startups in 2 days. And if they come to Portugal, they would not find that much deal flow. So this brings us back to these collaboration things. So if we work together, it's easier for us to increase and to expose more deal flow and to have to strengthen this positioning internationally. So, I believe that our brand has been increasing reputation and has been supporting this development for startups, and that's part of our role as cities, is to help this reputation building, but also we still lack this collaboration to improve this positioning.
Thank you, Daniela. Diogo, do you want to share your take on this?
No, I agree with Daniela and Pedro. I think the Portugal brand, and I've been working at Invest Lisboa for 10 years more now. There was a big change in this time for the attraction of Portugal as a tech destination, and the .pt, as you mentioned, as you refer to a brand. I think it's increasing value as an added advantage. I don't think we are there yet. I think we have a lot to grow and a lot to work with. I think Portuguese startups here have lots of opportunities, investment opportunities in pre-seed, seed, Series A investment, but still, if you want to go further to a Series B or Series C, you have to look abroad. That's not a bad thing in itself, but as a city, if we can manage to grow the interests of investors even further to the B and C series, and have them also browsing and even setting up here operations, I think it's a goal and a vision that we should aim for. But to answer your question directly, I think it's an increasing advantage to have the .pt. People and investors are increasingly aware of companies that are coming from here, of technology, and that is emerging here from Portugal. I completely agree with Daniela that we have a volume issue. That's a thing that we have in Portugal forever, because we are a small country. But that's why we have to focus on quality, on niche instead of volume. But I'm very, as I already mentioned, I'm very optimistic. I think things are much better. Portugal has already 3 or 4 unicorns. I think that's also part of the story of growing up stories of. And these unicorns, usually these companies that are successful, not only is good for the storytelling, but they also reinvest in local companies, so that helps grow the ecosystem. So I think we are going through. We are a young ecosystem, so it's naturally that I see that it's natural that we are in growing the interest of investors, and the investment tickets and investment number of investments here in Portugal is growing a lot, and I think it can grow much more if we, as Daniela mentioned, are able to continue to nurture this brand and this idea, this awareness that Portugal is a place where good technology and good people, good companies are being created.
Thank you, Diogo. So we're just running out of time. I would like to make the last call for questions, and would like to present 2 questions to our panel, 2 really quick ones that we need to go over. So how can your organizations help entrepreneurs raise money? Like really quickly, how are you helping entrepreneurs that are moving to Portugal, that are starting now in Portugal, raise some money? Diogo, you were the last to speak. Do you want to go?
So I can start. We are not investors ourselves. So what we do is we try to share our knowledge and our network of contacts in Lisbon, in this case, to advise them to connect and make introductions to the right people. So we are a place to contact, but we are not the final contact.
Daniela, do you want to go now?
Yeah, that's we also don't invest, but we are glad to facilitate these connections, and that's what we have been promoting, not only with investors themselves, but to the networks where they are inserted. Also, we have been working a lot on production of materials that they can use to understand the ecosystem and the potential destination. So and contacting them, and showcasing what we have, and also making our ecosystem more visible through digital platforms, through materials and communication. That's also part of it.
Thank you. Pedro, I think that this question is a little bit more complicated on Yapme's side, but still wanted to
not just, of course, Yapme, as you said earlier, we normally work trying to stimulate and develop the network. Okay, so Startup Portugal, of course, is a natural partner. We have the national network of incubators, and of course, as we see it, we see it in 2 ways. First, we will keep on developing the ecosystem, and we have new programs for that in the Resilience and Recovery Facility. For the next times, we have programs that will help startups with voucher schemes that will help them on the early stages to support their early expenses. Normally the time where they are more fragile and are trying to gather investors, and of course also vouchers for the accelerators, incubators to gather more competencies, more capacities to help startups on their development. Of course, we will also work on another area that is a new area for us, is the streamlining the recruitment of international skills and people. We have this tech visa program that will be streamlined also in in the shorter term, with more areas where companies will have some instruments where they can get people from outside Portugal to come and work in Portugal and reinforce their work teams. And we also have the startup visa, where we are trying to also with the visas and residence permits, streamlining with the border and control authorities and the entities that are working on this area, to streamline the process that helps people come to set up their business in Portugal. And sometimes these barriers, administrative barriers, are also important to facilitate the process, and so that startups and international entrepreneurs can look at Portugal as a easy place where they can start their business and develop their business internationally.
Thank you. I think we have just run out of time. I mean, I would like to keep up picking your brains for a little bit longer, but we are already 5 minutes over the hour that we set. So I would like to thank you all for joining us in this webinar. I think it was an amazing opportunity for everyone. So Pedro Magalhães from Banco Português de Fomento, Adão Oliveira from Portugal Ventures, Diogo Cruz from Invest Lisboa, Daniela Monteiro from Porto Digital, and Pedro Silini from YAPME. Thank you all for your contributions. This webinar will be shared later on social media, so we'll be happy to connect everyone. If anyone has any questions, please reach out to us. We'll be really happy to connect you with any of our speakers. And once again, thank you all for making time to participate and to share your takes with us. It was an amazing time that we had here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Cheers.
Bye.
Bye-bye.